Throughout the course of One Piece's everlasting journey, we as viewers have experienced and learned so much from Luffy and the Straw Hat Pirates. As they go around from island to island, we learn about the world. Every island is different from the last, housing their very own political powers, history, and even cultures. It's almost impossible to comprehend the vastness of the fictional world that the author, Eiichiro Oda, has created. And yet, among all these unique islands that have their own stories and plot lines, there is but one that stands out amongst them all. That is, the fantastical, the creepy, and the extremely unique story of the Whole Cake Island arc. Now, I can go into detail about what it is that makes this arc so good, but that's a story for another day. For this video, I want to concentrate on the story of one man, the MVP of the arc, and my personal favorite antagonist in all of fiction, Charlotte Katakuri. Alright, so before we get into this analysis, I just want to say that it'll really help your boy out if you go down and press the subscribe button and like the video. That way you can motivate me to make more content in the future, because I already know that I will be super inconsistent. So thank you in advance to anybody that does. Now let's get on with the analysis. So a lot of people seem to be under the notion that the fight was won purely through plot armor. And I'm here to say that this is simply not true. And I could see why people think that, you know, Luffy starting out, he was always getting thrashed, and then he suddenly had a sudden spurt of growth and was able to fight on par with Katakuri. But there's a lot of underlying subtext that most viewers won't see if they don't completely understand the two characters, being Luffy and Katakuri. That being said, there was one instance throughout the entire course of this fight where plot armor was put into effect, and that was when Luffy was running away and he stumbled upon Brule and escaped out of the mirrors to Nuts Island. However, we're just not going to talk about that. Now, for some reason, people really like to downplay Luffy's endurance, when really, it's nothing to joke about. Just like a bouncy ball, he keeps popping right back up. Now, if you're an anime-only watcher, I highly suggest you skip to the time on the video, because I will be talking about massive manga spoilers. So the point about Luffy being like a bouncy ball is prevalent now more than ever, seeing the latest developments that are happening on the rooftop in Onigashima. Kaido slams Luffy down with his Ragnarok attack and actually knocks him out. And the very next chapter, Luffy is back up again. It's this exact trait of Luffy's that eventually led to Katakuri's downfall. So let me explain. Shonen series are widely known for big climactic showdowns at the very end of each arc. And One Piece is no exception to this rule, be it Luffy vs Crocodile, Luffy vs Doflamingo, or even Luffy vs Hody Jones. Following that trend, Whole Cake Island should be no different, with Katakuri being that final boss that Luffy must overcome. But haven't you ever stopped and wondered that there was something weird about this fight? Like, it didn't feel like the others. And there's a good reason for that. If it wasn't already made clear by the conclusion of the fight, and how Luffy covered Katakuri's mouth, there's obviously a deeper meaning here that goes far beyond mutual respect. But what is it exactly? Well, that's what this video is for. You see, what typically makes Luffy's fight so iconic and satisfying is the underlying themes that are associated with it. For Luffy, his character theme has always been centered around freedom, which is why most of his fights end in some form of liberation. Luffy destroying Arlong meant that Nami and her village would be freed from his tyrannical rule. Luffy punching Crocodile through the bedrock from the underground ruins exposed him to the world as the secret leader of the criminal organization Baroque Works. When Luffy punched Doflamingo into the ground, it meant that he got sent back to the underground where he belongs. However, Luffy vs Katakuri does not liberate anything really. Beating Katakuri won't liberate the citizens of Whole Cake Island from Big Mom's rule. It's here that we need to stop and wonder what a victory really means. For example, in Dressrosa, defeating Doflamingo was considered a victory, but in Whole Cake Island, victory simply meant retrieving Sanji and successfully escaping Totoland. From there on, Luffy's fight with Katakuri wasn't even necessary, which is why it turned into something a lot more constrained and personal. On the surface, it might seem like they have a lot in common, but they really don't. Luffy is adventurous, excitable, and loves meat, while Katakuri is staunch, tense, and loves donuts and tea.
Donuts.
And yet, both of them still hold the weight of their entire families on their backs. Luffy's family is, of course, the Straw Hat Pirates, his crew, and as we've seen, he'll go to any lengths to protect them. They all love each other equally, and with their undying trust in one another, Luffy is able to be himself. However, in contrast, Katakuri can't. His family is made up of assholes who aren't even able to trust each other. They all rule under Big Mom, and as we've seen, a large factor of that is through fear. The only person that they can turn to is Katakuri, who is forced to be the big brother to them all. He's the one that will always help them out. He's the one that can be trusted. He's the one that will ensure that Big Mom is never truly threatened. And to do this, well, he needs to build up that persona of being that perfect man that has never had a single flaw throughout his entire life. His only moment of openness is when he's able to finally sit down in his mochi cottage and munch on some big old donuts.
Donuts. Donuts. Ah, donuts. Umashi. Donuts.
More often than not, playing the role of the villain, or antagonist in this case, is much more fun than playing that of the hero, as the villain is able to run rampant and do whatever he desires. They are much more liberated compared to the hero because they usually don't have any moral codes they need to abide by. But here, everything is reversed. At the end of the day, and at the end of the fight, Luffy will go back to pirating and doing whatever he wants, but Katakuri is stuck in that exact same position he started in. No matter how much he's relied upon or loved by his family, he'll always just be another tool for Big Mom to use. So unlike most arcs, this battle between Luffy and Katakuri does not come down to the liberation of Whole Cake Island, but rather the emotional liberation of Katakuri's mentality. You see, Katakuri has devoted his whole life on the notion that he can't lose, so maybe after finally losing, would he come into consensus with his own personal weaknesses and be free. Free from the shackles of this false persona that he had created for himself. Luffy vs Katakuri breaks the common shonen formula for a fight once you discover the motivation and philosophy behind each character's actions. So let me elaborate on that. I believe that Luffy is an impersonation of what Katakuri would have been like, or could have been like, had he stood up and been himself. Katakuri is someone who changes himself to fit into society, but in contrast, Luffy is someone who changes society to fit his character. Katakuri saw his former self in Luffy, or what he could have become had he took a different path. It's for this reason that Katakuri began to gain respect for him, and let him leave at the end of Whole Cake Island and at the end of the fight. Think back to his past, he was a lot like Luffy in his flashback, but once someone hurt and left a permanent scar on his little sister Brulee's face because of his actions, he changed himself so that would never happen to someone he cared for again. It's also for this reason that he decided to land on his back. Katakuri wanted to lose, this is very important. He wanted to be defeated. After he saw himself in Luffy, he wanted to admit defeat by his former self, representing that he used to be stronger than what he is now. This is thematically prevalent too, as the whole fight is themed around mirrors. In this case, Luffy is the reflection of Katakuri's former self. Which makes things quite ironic too, because at the beginning of the fight, Katakuri said it himself, he was stronger and better than Luffy in every way possible. But as the fight went on and he began to experience Luffy's resilience more and more, he began to doubt himself. Which is why Katakuri got confused when he was able to stab Luffy. He wanted Luffy's ideologies to be correct, and Luffy was slowly beginning to prove that. But that one slip-up made Katakuri second guess himself. However, even after having his stomach impaled, Luffy still got up. It's here that Katakuri knew something was wrong. To find out whose ideology was correct, he needed to fight fairly, so he impaled himself too. Otherwise, he would have never known who was right in the end. And then that's when, at some point, he started seeing him as an equal. Not an equal in physical strength or ability, but rather an equal in mentality and will. One Piece is a series centered around willpower after all. Now the important thing here is that Katakuri chose to fall on his back on purpose, but he could have fallen forward just as easily. Brule even pointed that out at the end of the fight. This fight is a masterpiece because of the clashes between similar ideologies. If you don't understand it, it just looks like another fight. Now I need to reiterate again that Luffy reminds him of something he once was or could have been, which is why he keeps pushing him to get up every time he fell. Because he wanted Luffy to surpass him and his current ideals, even if he wasn't conscious of it. Based on my experiences, I believe that people are upset at the technical outcome of the fight, where many perceive that one defeated the other in a 1v1 physical brawl. In my opinion though, the beauty of this fight comes from two main reasons. Number one, the fight is both a physical and mental fight. Number two, the winner of both these fights are subject to the reader's interpretation of the ending. I believe that the physical fight was won by Katakuri, as he lands far more attacks on Luffy than Luffy lands on him. Albeit, I'm still in the school of thought that Katakuri also has less durability and stamina than Luffy, seeing as how his whole arsenal and moveset is based around dodging attacks. Which means that when he stabbed himself, it actually did far more damage to him than it did to Luffy, who has been getting stabbed, wounded, and poisoned throughout the entire course of the story. Not to mention that his body is literally rubber. However, I believe that the mental fight was won by Luffy. He pushed Katakuri to his absolute mental limits, with his refusal to go down. Katakuri's initial desire in this fight was to crush Luffy's confidence by proving that there would always be someone stronger than him. But through the fight, Luffy showed Katakuri his grit and determination. This made Katakuri realize that he was actually enjoying the fight. This is because somebody had finally created a situation in which Katakuri could fight without the worries of his family or image. In other words, this fight served as a catalyst for Katakuri to relieve all his pent-up feelings. At various stages in the fight, Katakuri has Luffy on the ground and could have finished him off. However, he doesn't. Instead, he lets Luffy get back up and transform, never actually taking the initiative to attack himself. Instead, he gives this role to Luffy. Every time Luffy goes down, Katakuri is motivating him to get back up. But why? This shows us that Katakuri was desperate for the fight to continue, so that he can experience Luffy's continual growth. Now, after the fight has supposedly concluded, Luffy climbs out of the hole, and to his surprise, he sees Katakuri still standing there, looming over his body, as if to say, "I'm still stronger than you." However, by this point, Katakuri had already lost the will to fight. He just stands there, upright looking at Luffy get up, with his fist down of course. This is implying that he can keep going, but he does not wish to fight any longer. Instead, Katakuri asks Luffy if he's coming back, to which Luffy responds,
もちろんだ。俺は海賊王になる男だ。
Here, Katakuri realizes that no matter how hard he physically beats Luffy, He can't ever hope to crush his mental fortitude. Despite being in this desperate situation, despite being on the brink of death, Luffy never gave up. And with that, Luffy crushed Katakuri's spirit. And so, with this newfound respect, Katakuri admits defeat and falls on his back, signifying that now he is finally free. Okay, yeah, I know what everyone's gonna say. Luffy has conquered, he could control Conqueror's haki, he's fighting Kaido 101 hyper form right now, rooftop. Okay, I get it, I know all that. But, hear me out. Yes, I too believe that Luffy is stronger than Katakuri right now. But I do not believe it's by as much as people are saying. Yes, Luffy beat Katakuri, he won the fight, he was the victor. But the outcome of it was solely based on who Katakuri was as a character. And Luffy, mind you, only won the mental fight. That's the only reason Katakuri admitted defeat. Had Katakuri been like King the Wildfire, Luffy would have been dead in the first half hour of the fight. Look at how quickly Katakuri adapted to Snake Man, which is an attack speed based form. He took a couple hits and then quickly adapted to the new situation and even came out on top in the end. Katakuri essentially forfeited the match anyway. Halfway through the fight, he had no intention of killing Luffy whatsoever, and like I said at the beginning of this video, Luffy would not have survived had Brule not been there. Next, people are saying that Luffy has the exact same level of observation haki as Katakuri. This is not true either. Yes, Luffy can see into the future just as much as Katakuri, but he does not have full mastery of this ability. Katakuri could practically use future sight unconsciously, while Luffy needs to actually put an effort into utilizing it. For example, Luffy couldn't foresee Gazelle Man nabbing Tama, or Batman shooting Otsuru. However, the most important point here is that Katakuri is still stronger than Zoro. Now, the last thing I want to talk about for this analysis is the meaning behind Katakuri's tattoos, which really brings this whole thing together. This single piece of design is what really demonstrates Oda's amazing ability to design characters. Throughout the entire first half of this fight, we've only been able to see Katakuri's front side and never his back. Now, looking at his chest, what do those tattoos resemble? That's right, they are prison bars. Now, in this context, what do you believe these prison bars symbolize? Well, that's right, like I've said throughout the course of this video, it's him being shackled behind his responsibilities, unable to express his true desires. That is, until the beginning of the real fight. Now, throughout the whole thing, even when we see a glimpse of his back, the same prison bars are always there. But when he took off his scarf, he started to do what he wanted, and that was to fight Luffy. And fight he did, but he only fought for himself. That's when he takes off his jacket, the very jacket that bore his family name, Charlotte. And there we see a new tattoo, a wing, the symbol of freedom. No longer does he fight for Big Mom. No longer does he need to keep up this facade. No longer does he need to carry this burden and fight alone. For the first time in his life, he was able to be himself. He was finally free. When we most likely see Katakuri in the future, I hope he won't be wearing the scarf anymore to hide himself. I want him to show that he too has surpassed his limits and grew as a character, and learned from his fight with Luffy. Because in that sense, Katakuri would be the true winner, even if he didn't win the actual fight. If anybody made it this far into the video, I just want to say thank you. I just want to give my sincere thanks because none of this would have been possible without the overwhelming support and love I've been receiving on other social media platforms. So for that, I just want to say thank you so much. And I hope to see you all again sometime in the future. Very, very soon. Thank you.